Assalamu alaikum. The second lesson today is about numbers. As we stated in the previous lesson, the quantity lesson, that a number is an explicit quantity. So let me write down this. Statement doesn't say much about numbers. So what we know else about quantities. So we know that there are two kinds of quantities. We have discontinuous quantity and continuous quantity. So which means that we have two type of explicit quantities. So there are two kind of explicit quantities. So if you remember, we talk about discontinuous quantities, so we'll say explicit quantities here. And we have continuous explicit quantities. So those are the two kinds of explicit quantities, and we know that explicit quantities are just numbers. So which means, so if I erase this, I will say I have a discontinuous number and we have continuous number. So here, instead to say explicit quantities, I will say numbers here, and here I will say number. I'll just substitute explicit quantities by number. So in fact we have two kind of number. We have discontinuous number and we have continuous number. So that's the first star we can start with. So there are two kind of number. So there are two kind of number. So we have discontinuous number and we have continuous number. So now let's define each kind. Here I forgot of, so let me correct you first. Then we define each kind. Alright, let's start with the discontinuous number. So what is a discontinuous number? A discontinuous number is a countable number. So any countable number is a discontinuous number, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and so on. So when you count item, so this type of number you use is a discontinuous number. So discontinuous number. So let's put a def here, which is the definition. A discontinuous number is discontinuous numbers are countable number. let me give you an example. Like 2, 3, 4, 7, 13, and so on. So those are example of countable number, and we call them most of the time by integral number. So called integral number. In fact, the word integral comes from the French word intégral, which means whole. So this is what sometimes they don't call them integral, they call them just whole numbers. So whole numbers. So, and when we talk later on about other type of which is a signed number, so we're going to talk about integer. So this is again a word come from integer. So this is about this continuous number. So what about the continuous number? So we're going to define what is a continuous number. So this continuous number is a number that we can count. That means it's countable. So continuous number is not a countable number. We cannot count the quantity of a discontinuous number. So it's like the opposite. So definition. So continuous number, it's not a countable number. Are not countable number. And let me give you an example of a continuous number. For example, 2, 3, 5, and we have a dot, 7, 9, 3. Sometimes we keep going, sometimes we stop, so it's just an example. And that type of number, we call them decimal number, so called decimal number. So how we describe a decimal number. So let me give you a description of a decimal number, how we describe. So in fact, decimal number is a number made of two parts. So we have two parts. So this is a decimal number. So the first part is called the integral part, which gives you the countable part, and the second part is called fractional part, which is the portion of the unit. So decimal number are numbers made of two parts. So we have the integral part and fractional part. So let's pick the same example. So the first part, which is on the left side of the dot, is the integral part. And the side which is on the right side of the dot, it's called the fractional part. And the dot, it's called this decimal dot. So after we talk about the two kind of numbers, so now let's talk about how to read a number. So how do we read? Read a number. So keep in mind that any number is a mixture of distinct quantity. So how is that? So let me write down this one. So a number, or any number, is a mixture of distinct quantity. So how? So let me give you an example, and I will show you this idea from an example. Suppose we pick, for example, like 400 something. So like let's pick 479, for example. So how we read this? We read as this form. So we say 470 79. So it's exactly how we read that number. So but why we read it this way? In fact, what you read, in fact, how many hundred we have here? We have 4 of 100 of the quantity 100, and we have 7 of quantity 10, and we have 9 of quantity ones, which is unit. So how we read, in fact, what we read the value of each type of quantity. So what we read here, I read the value of this type of quantity, which is the 100. So I read 4 of 100. So we, instead to say 4 of 100, we say 400. 710. So instead of 710, we just agree to use 70. So in fact, 710 is 70. So we use 7 of the quantity 10. So instead to say 710, we say 70, just to make it easy to read. And we have 9, so it's 9 once, we just put 9, we just say 9. So this is how we come up with this idea of reading numbers. So instead to say 4 of the quantity 100, we say 400, and say 710, so instead of 710 we say 70, and 9 is just, we say 9, which is the ones quantity. So it's exactly how we read. So we read the value of each quantity. So we read the value. So these are the value and those are the quantity. So we have, those are the value and those are the quantity. So what we read the value, assign it to each quantity. So 400. So that's going to assign 4 to the quantity 100. That's going to have 4 of the quantity 100. I have 7 of the quantity 10. I have 9 of the quantity 1s. So this is exactly how we read number. So to read, so let me write it down. So to read a number, so what we do, we read the value assigned to the quantity. So we read the value assigned to the quantity followed by the type of the quantity. So we read the value assigned to the quantity followed by type of that quantity. So if they ask you to find the place value, so you just need to read the digit itself. So the digit will tell you what place value is. For example, if they ask you what's the place value of that digit, just read the digit 400. This means the 100 is the value of that place held by that digit. So this is exactly the idea of the place value. So you can get the place value. We don't need to draw a table for the place value, even though I will show you, or I will draw the table for you. But just reading the digit, it will state by itself what is the place value of that digit. So for here, if I read 400, you see the second word is the answer of the place value question. What's the place value of 400? That means is hundreds. Now let me draw for you the table of quantity we use for number. In fact, it's the same thing as the place value table. So if I is the same, it's almost it's in fact it's identical. So here we have ones. So on the right side we use the fractional part, and here we have the greater number or the greater quantities. So here we have tens, 100, 1,000, 10,000, and so on. 100,000 and million and so on. So here we have the tens, 100, 1,000, 10,000, and so on. So here we have the ones. So here tens, 100, 1,000. So we have 10,000, 100,000, and here we have, this is million and so on. So this is going to be 10, 100, 1,000, 10,000, and so on. So this is the table, and most of the book they use place value table. So let's name it place value table. So if you want, and in fact this is the type of quantity we use to make numbers and read numbers. So if I want to write, for example, 459 in my place value table, if you want, so I start always with the smallest, which is the ones. So I put the ones here. I have nine ones, and we have 5, 10, and 400. So to read it is 450. That's me 510, 50, 510, 59. So the same thing if I have 32.357. So we always start with the point. If I want to write down the decimal number in the place value table, we always start with the point, which is between the tens and the ones always, and I put 2, 3, and this is 3, 5, 7. So how to read that number? So I read this one, which is 32, and I read this number as if it was an integer number. So if it was like here 357 is the same thing, 357, but the difference here is we read it as a whole number 357, but we always add the last the quantity of the last digit. So the quantity of the 7 is 10th, sorry, thousandth. So it's going to be 357,000. So this is how we read it. So it's going to be 32 For the dot we use the word and, 32 and 357,000. So this is how we read decimal number. And how to write a number in Word. Okay, I make a mistake here. So normally this is 10,000, not 1,000. We cannot have 1,000 twice. Alright, so how to write a number in English. For example, I want to write down that number in Word. So what we write is we write the value in Word, and we'll write the quantity in Word. So it's the same thing. It's like how you read it, you write it. This is exactly how I say to my students: how you read it, you write it. So here I read it as 400, so it's going to be 400. 510, so it's going to be 50, 50, and 9. It's the same thing as the way you read it. The way you read it, you write it down. So, and here the same thing. The only difference here is for the dot. The dot, we always use the word and for the dot. So just to separate the two type of quantities. So this is the fractional part, this is the integral part. So we always put a dot between them to make the difference between the two types. So here it's going to be, this is 310, so it's going to be 32. So 32, and so now this is the integral part, so we'll start with the fractional part. Like I said, we just, how you read it, you write it down. So 357, so it's going to be 357, but we always add the quantity of the last digit, so 1,000, 37,000. So this is exactly how we write a number in Word. This is all about the lesson today. So I will provide you with the PDF file of the type of quantities in Word. Like it's like the place value table in Word. So you see 10, 1,000, and the number in Word. So the digit in Word, like 4, 5, 1,000, 10, and so on. And from the lesson 2 and up, I will provide you with the console, which is a practice program for each lesson. You can have his own console. You can download for free from my website, which is www.ismailacademy.com. So it's going to look like this. So it's something that you will need to install on your computer. So it's safe. It's free. You can check with the antivirus. It's free from any virus. So it has this lesson. So you're going to click on the lesson, which is the same lesson you see here. I will provide you with some example, and you choose the type of question you want to use. Is it hard or medium, or the type of question? So this is just a random picture, and you have you start the practice with the question will show up here, and when you do the question, click check the answer to see the answer. You have a scratchboard. I will provide the video to show you how to use this console. So this is all about the lesson today, and if you have any comments about the lesson, please do so. It will help me a lot improve my way of teaching. And thank you very much, and Assalamu alaikum.